Albert Einstein said among the most difficult problems in all of physics is the Earth's magnetic field. Welcome to Convergence. My name's Michael Doran. I'm a California attorney. I argue that the Earth's magnetic field is among the most difficult problems in all of biology. Today I want to talk about killer whales or orcas. It's a fascinating subject. They're the apex predator. As I've discussed before, this is a problem, the Earth's magnetic field, in terms of the biological solution. This is a problem where there's multiprocessing going on. And it's been that way since nucleotides were in supercooled cloud droplets and solving for the Earth's magnetic field. As the sun has become more luminous, the nucleotides couldn't do the modulating that they do directly in clouds. And by then, the nucleotides had calculated a cellular solution to contain chemistries, to contain itself, and then ultimately to do its quantum calculation outside of the atmosphere and inside cells. And then obviously the sun has become 25% more luminous, and the Earth itself has cooled inside, so its interior has become less conductive, and just like a toaster heats up when electric current runs through it, the Earth has had to heat itself to maintain conductive pathways and to maintain its magnetic field. And this has required ever more complex life. And it's not just one life form, it's many. But as we start to get into large scale dampening that life does, you have to start looking at the apex predators and what they do. And today I want to talk about the orca or killer whales. The first thing that has to be said is they, again, are sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field, as are dolphins and whales. And they're the apex predator. Their range that I want to focus on that's interesting is along the Pacific Northwest. I also want to give a shout out to Jeremy Wade from River Monsters and Dark Waters. I think he, more than any biologist, has not just made this an interesting subject, but has just, I wouldn't say by accident, but by fascination, focused on the areas that are the most electrically significant around the world. And he has made environmental observations that are deeply profound. And he's a hero of mine. If this becomes viral, which I would humbly hope that this would become viral, this subject. And I would be incredibly honored to meet Jeremy Wade for his work in this area. He had an episode that I want to talk about a little bit with killer whales. It's episode, it was in season 2019, season 1, episode 2 of Dark Waters. In there, his mystery was what was making the king salmon disappear in Alaska. And the conclusion he came up with was that the killer whales were eating them. And the reason why I think this is incredibly profound is beginning about 2018, the sun became kind of quiet, and cosmic rays then, therefore, which is counter-related, became very active. And during that time, we had megafires here in California. In fact, my neighborhood was destroyed, and then there's an episode that I have about that. About how our neighborhood was destroyed with a mega fire and a fire NATO that was 1,000 feet wide, came in and destroyed our neighborhood and caused us to be evacuated. That this resulted in a profound electrical change, and then ultimately, because it's a dampened system by life, and life is sensitive to these changes and causes dampening, your apex predator, your orca whale, is eating salmon, which are also a creature which is sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field, and haven't evolved to be poisonous. In fact, there's selective pressure for there to be a very nutritious food, high in omega-3, and that's what the salmon or the killer whale went after, to the effect that the largest species, the king salmon, became very diminished in its main river habitat in Alaska. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what is now known about the killer whale. What we know is that it evolved from mammals that were kind of like, almost looked like dogs, related vaguely to bears, that lived along the rivers, and then slowly they evolved back into sea creatures. And all whales are like that. Now, some of the whales, they became herbivores essentially, and it's almost like a dog and sheep, where the killer whales are sort of like shepherds. They eat other whales, they eat dolphins, they eat sharks. They're the apex predator. And so you have this sort of a extremely large brain creature that's sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field. It communicates with whistles and buzzes, or kind of like clicks, very much like analogous to the lightning strike and the Schumann resonances that would occur as a result of. And it's because that's where their brain, the fundamental parts of their brain formed from the early development of nucleotides in clouds. And they're sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field. This is where the brain of life now is. This is where the quantum brain of life is. And its primary purpose from the beginning was to modulate or dampen the Earth's magnetic field. If the Earth's magnetic field gets too strong, then you get Jupiter or Neptune or Uranus, gas giants, dead planets. If the Earth's magnetic field is too weak, then you get Mars. And so the Earth's magnetic field is a product of life dampening or modulating lightning, changing clouds, and then therefore heating the Earth, heating conductive pathways, keeping plate tectonics going, keeping the Earth's magnetic field going and strong. But not too strong. Modulating, dampening. It's not a random occurrence that we're seeing. This is, even as the sun has become more luminous, 25% more luminous since life began, the Earth is dampening it. It's creating more saline oceans. It's creating a solution set, massively parallel. It's more than one life form with nucleotides. But this is the apex predator, and it's sensitive to exactly where the action is, the rivers, because the rivers affect salinity and carbonation levels. It's about carbonation. We're carbon life forms. It's about carbonation in clouds, which affect cloud microphysics. We're carbon life forms for that matter, for that reason. So the whistles are very interesting. This is a creature that they exist in pods. They exist as a community. They learn. They teach their young how to hunt. They have huge brains. They're emotional. They have emotional part of their brain, which, if you think about it, if their emotions are affected by what the Earth magnetic field is saying to them, then it's going to affect their behavior in certain ways, their hunting patterns, their populations. The other interesting thing is their range is the Pacific Northwest. Now, in geohistory, the neoglacials, superstorms, have started in the Pacific Northwest, basically the mountains off the coast of the northwestern Canada. These storms last about 10 years, and they deposit a huge amount of precipitation in the form of ice. And then the oceans become much more saline and therefore conductive, kind of like in the long range, the oceans during when life first formed and the sun was 25% less luminous, the oceans were less saline. They're more diluted and less conductive. Now they're more saline, and the feedbacks have changed, the dynamics have changed, and so despite the inputs being warmer, the sun is not heating up the Earth and turning it into a gas ball. It's just the right temperature for where this dampening occurs, and that's because life has controlled salinity of the oceans. But there's up and downs, it cycles, and when glacials occur, you put all the ice onto the land, you cause reflection, of course, albedo changes, but more significantly, you change the dynamics of cloud behaviors, which heat or cool the Earth. You also, by changing where the weight is on the continents versus the less water in the oceans, you change plate tectonics and volcanic activity as well. So when these neoglacial storms occur, they're quite dramatic, and they cause profound non-linear change in what's going on. And we know from geohistory that they've begun in the Pacific Northwest, and that's precisely the range of where the Orca are. And it should be no surprise, the apex predator is there in the Pacific Northwest. Some concerns that I have as humans try to be shepherds of these dampenings these natural dampenings that occur would be things like Chinese overfishing, and again, their drought, it's a regional drought because the feedbacks are local to the electric fields and the rainfall events that occur. And so it's no surprise that with things like overfishing and new dams in China, not just the Three Gorge Dam, but also the 20 new dams on the river that is in the south. The name escapes me, but the major river that they have there. Okay, so let's see if I covered all the things I wanted to cover here. So the high cosmic ray event was from 2018 to just about now, 2023. And during this time, California's had mega fires. We've had horrific drought. And now that we're starting to get some X-ray events and the sun has become more active and the active sun has pushed out cosmic rays, we're starting to get some big storms. And reservoirs up here in Northern California, at least, are filling, although Lake Mead is empty. The big concern in terms of really extreme neoglacial storms isn't so much what Lake Mead is doing, it's what, again, the Pacific Northwest is doing, because as CO2 levels go up, when you get warming, then what happens is the colder oceans move towards the poles. And then that becomes a problem because your decarbonation events, your storms that are affected by carbonation, move towards the poles. And then as they move towards the poles, then it becomes more likely that precipitation events are in the form of snowfall and ice rather than in the form of rainfall. And so, again, why are the orcas up in the north, Pacific North? They're also along the Southern Ocean as well, Argentina. There are ranges down there and also there are pods of orcas that kind of separate out from the biggest group of them, and they're found even in California off the coast of Mexico, smaller groups of orcas. But the bulk of them are in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is not just the range of the orcas, but what we're seeing now with the movement of the Earth magnetic field. The Earth's magnetic field has weakened and moved. So if this is Alaska, and this is Pacific Northwest, and this is the range of the orcas right in here. Up here, and I know this isn't a globe. If you had a globe, and you were looking down on a globe, and this is the geographic North Pole, you have Canada here, and then you have Alaska, and you have Russia over here. Okay, what the Earth's magnetic field has done is it's moved towards Alaska, it's moved towards Russia in this direction here from Canada over the past 100 years or so. It's also weakened about 10% as higher carbonation levels have occurred around the Earth. So again, it makes this range over here of the orcas quite interesting. You have these are huge creatures, and they hunt sharks, which also affect carbonation levels and behaviors of fish. They hunt seals, which are also a fish-eating creature, which will affect carbonation levels. They eat king salmon, which is a food that from a fish that is very sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field, and also connected to the river systems, and the salmon are capable of bringing microbes all the way up the thermodynamic hill, up rivers where they spawn, but then they're eaten, and they're able to migrate to where they're supposed to go, what river they're supposed to go, even though they have no parental guidance to do this. It's an entirely instinctive type of thing based on the Earth's magnetic field. And then a bear, probably closely related to the killer whale, if you go back far enough, or an eagle, or some other, these eagles also fly relative to the Earth's magnetic field, sensitive to it, and they will take the microbes that are in the rotting flesh of the salmon that were in the ocean and take it up to a mountaintop, to an eagle's nest, or spread it around after they eat it to where if the bear eats it and moves around. Those microbes basically are moving up a thermodynamic hill and spreading due to the salmon. And the salmon have not evolved something where they're not healthy to eat, just the opposite. There's selective pressure on the salmon to do what they do and to be nutritious for these other animals. And it's because there's selective pressure on the whole system to maintain or modulate or dampen the Earth's magnetic field. If they don't, the whole system dies, the whole ecology dies. And so what we're seeing is we're taking carbon dioxide out of the inactive biosphere from a time, say, from the Carboniferous, when most of the land, Pangea, was over the South Pole, and lightning occurs mostly over land. You had a totally different global electric circuit. You needed more carbon dioxide to modulate or dampen the Earth's magnetic field. Now we're taking that carbonation that's outside of the active biosphere and putting it in, and so we're causing defects and feedback loops and straining the biosphere for it to do its job collectively or massively parallel solve the Earth's magnetic field problem. And just as a species, we're not being shepherds of this dampening. We're actually creating defects and feedback loops that are natural and solving this problem. There are, of course, other whales that evolved from the same creatures that were basically river bear-like creatures. And those whales are herbivores, and they're eating phytoplankton and then basically converting it to whale poo. And that whale poo really is fascinating because these are such massive creatures, 60 feet long or whatever, different types of whales. And those whales, in so converting phytoplankton basically into rotting feces, basically converting it into something that's readily able to increase carbonation levels. And so when surface lows come, they pick up that carbonation and put it into clouds exactly where the whales are. And so if the whales themselves are sensitive to the Earth magnetic field, sensitive to where the phytoplankton is growing, they are then going to result in feedbacks or dampening of clouds, specifically where their habitat is. So it's almost like a shepherd or a sheepdog and a man kind of herding the sheep, which has, and the sheep having the same kind of effect on what ultimately flows down rivers and carbonation levels. It's all part of this solution of modulating or dampening the Earth's magnetic field through what thunderstorms are doing and what clouds are doing. And so this is why it's very concerning that we do things like overfish or burn fossil fuels or dam rivers, because what we're doing is interfering with the natural intelligence, the quantum brain of the biosphere as a whole, to dampen or cause feedbacks to keep the Earth magnetic field healthy. There's some other just really fascinating things about orcas in terms of their ability to communicate with each other in pods. It's again the same type of frequency communication, which is a kind of communication that you would have seen ultimately at the beginning of the formation of life with the nucleotides and clouds, where frequency changes would result in active quantum changes in the nucleotides, and then hence actively alter how phase changes occurred with supercooled ice droplets, and then in a calculated way change the way thunderstorms were occurring, and hence the Earth's magnetic field. And so when this solution set was created by early life, how to solve the Earth's magnetic field, then it created specific types of nucleotides, proteins, amino acids that that then through evolution get reconstructed. But it's not something that just randomly occurred by chance. Over huge timescales, this solution to the Earth's magnetic field was calculated, and then now it's been recalculated as life has become more complex, but it was recalculated out of the same building blocks that were evolved when early life occurred. So it's not surprising then that the whales, as they are a subset of this, have learned how to use frequencies to communicate. Because what they're doing is they're taking audio signals, converting those audio signals that are in the water into electrical signals, and then those electrical signals then ultimately are related to their own nucleotides and how they calculate in their quantum brains, and then how their brains think inside themselves are then subject to this fuzzy logic that then they use to communicate as social creatures with the other animals. And how they feel and how they interact is sensitive to, even now the Earth's magnetic field over time becomes sensitive not just to the magnetic field, but also how to solve it, how their social and behavioral patterns then become a component in solving and making the Earth's magnetic field better or dampening it. From a distance, it sounds absolutely far-fetched that life is capable of doing this. I mean, the scale of it is immense. You have a giant planet and a giant magnetic field that gets dampened, and you start out with something so tiny as a nucleotide. But the nucleotide gets replicated in mass in early life and then is able to solve this complex problem. And in solving it, it's the model of the solution, the nucleotides, as well as the feedback. And it's just the solution set has become more complex over time. By understanding what this process is, then we can be shepherds and we can continue to be consistent with what the Earth is already doing. If we think that we are independent in our interests as human beings, that we don't have to consider what we're doing to the Earth's magnetic field, what's going to happen is the Earth's magnetic field basically is going to bite back. And superstorms, glacial conditions will kill billions and displace billions of people. It's as simple as that. We've over the last 4,000 years have become very, very used to a stable climate, but that hasn't been the case over, even if you go back 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 years, you go to the younger deists, very, very abrupt swings in rainfall events, flood events, droughts, seismic activity, volcanoes, much more extreme than what we're seeing now. We're seeing very stable, dampened conditions because life itself is acting in concert to solve the problem with Earth's magnetic field. We have to be shepherds ourselves and figure out how to be consistent with this mechanism. It's not CO2 as a greenhouse gas, it's CO2 in clouds in the context of electrical fields. And that's the problem that needs to be solved. We need to be educated, and then we need to learn to be shepherds on a living earth. Okay, thank you. Like if you like, and please subscribe if you want. I appreciate your viewership. Have a great day.